Good morning, 11th class. So, this is our third lecture on our chemical control and coordination. Those who are watching this lecture for the first time, so I will request them, please go through first my first two lectures. Only then you will be able to connect with us, right? Because we are going NCRT topic wise, and if you are even watching the videos in the middle, it will be very tough for you to understand the things, right? Because there is a connection with every video. So the reason, the purpose is to start, that is why I always say that if you are watching it from the in the middle, then start from the first lecture. So here today in this special class, I'm going to talk about pituitary and pineal gland. Pituitary, yesterday we talked about the pituitary gland, and we said that there is the anterior pituitary lobe, posterior, as well as the intermediate. So today we will talk about those lobes, that how they are, what is the history behind these lobes. So they are divided, this pituitary gland, it is mainly divided into two parts. जो pituitary gland है उसको हम main two parts में हम divide करते हैं, and these two parts are adenohypophysis and neurohypophysis. If you recall, कल हमने हाइपोफाइजियल पोर्टल सिस्टम किया था, राइट? कि अगर हाइपोथैलेमस को एंटीरियर लोब ऑफ पिट्यूटरी को स्टिमुलेट करना है, तो इट विल come via hypophyseal portal system. So you will be now totally, you will get the idea, you will get the picture that why we said that. So फर्स्ट पिट्यूटरी ग्लैंड जो है उसके टू मेन पार्ट्स होते हैं. व्हाट आर दीज टू पार्ट्स? दे आर एडिनोहाइपोफाइसिस एंड न्यूरोहाइपोफाइसिस. एडिनोहाइपोफाइसिस जो है, इट इज़ डेवलप्ड फ्रॉम द फेरेंजियल, जो हमारा फेरेंजियल एरिया है, उसका एक outgrowth है. Basically it is developed from the pharyngeal outgrowth, and this pharyngeal outgrowth, it is known as Rathke's pouch. As you know ना, it is a outgrowth, किसी area से बाहर निकला हुआ, so it is known as a Rathke's pouch. और neurohypophysis, just look at the name, it is developed from extension of hypothalamus. ये जो hypothalamus का एक्सटेंड वर्जन है, इंक्रीज, जो बेसिकली यहाँ पे अगर हमारा हाइपोथैलेमस प्रेजेंट है तो उसका जो बाहर जो एक्सटेंडेड वर्जन है, दैट इज़ नोन एज द न्यूरोहाइपोफाइसिस. सो Rathke's pouch, it has three parts. One is distalis, pars distalis, one is pars tuberalis, and one is pars intermedia. फिर से थोड़ा सा देखेंगे. Pituitary gland, it has two parts. Pituitary gland has two parts, adenohypophysis and neurohypophysis. Neurohypophysis, it is developed from the extension of hypothalamus, and it is known as pars nervosa, क्योंकि ये hypothalamus जो है वो nervous system का part है. So इसका जो नाम भी है वो भी nervous system से related है, that is the pars nervosa, and it give rise to posterior lobe of pituitary. अब जो adenohypophysis है वो outgrowth है किसकी? pharyngeal की, and it is known as Rathke's pouch. और इसके भी आगे तीन parts हैं, distalis, tuberalis and intermedia. जो distalis and tuberalis हैं, they combine together and they form anterior lobe of pituitary. So जो आपका anterior lobe of pituitary बना है वो किससे बना है? pars distalis and pars tuberalis. और जो आपका posterior lobe of pituitary है वो किससे बना है? It is from the pars nervosa. And now what is left? Anterior is covered, posterior is covered, only pars intermedia. So pars intermedia, which is the another part of your Rathke's pouch, it is known as middle lobe of pituitary or intermediate lobe of pituitary. I hope this thing is clear to us, that pituitary gland has two main parts, adenohypophysis and neurohypophysis. From these neurohypophysis, posterior lobe of pituitary arises, and from adenohypophysis, our anterior lobe of pituitary as well as our intermediate, that is the lobe of pituitary arises. Is it clear to everyone? Right. Now move on to the location. See, master gland है ये, pituitary gland is known as the master gland, और ये bones bony cavity में present होता है, and that is location is actually it is known as the sella turcica. Right, ये NEET में direct ऐसे ही question आता है, sella turcica, basically the location where is the bony cavity, and this is just like a pouch, you can say extension outgrowth जो hypothalamus से निकली हुई होती है. ये मेरा hypothalamus है, इसके ऊपर thalamus present है, तो ऐसा छोटा सा जो pouch like जो structure है हमारा वो pituitary निकला होता है. So it is attached to hypothalamus by a stalk, but it is located where, that is the cavity that is known as sella turcica. So this is the diagrammatic part in which we talk about that how these anterior lobe and the posterior lobe of pituitary, they get stimulated, right? How the procedure, what is the mechanism? See now, as you can see, first we will start from this. This is one lobe. Just look at the black line, black outline. Just look at this portion which I am drawing right now. Just look at this portion we are drawing, this black one, right? This portion is my anterior lobe of pituitary, right? And then in the middle there is the pars intermedia. This is the intermediate lobe, and this lobe is known as now posterior lobe of pituitary. So I think 3 lobes are clear, that this आगे वाली side पे कौन सी, A for आगे, A for interior, that is the anterior lobe of, this lobe is anterior lobe of pituitary, and this one is the intermediate जो middle में present है, that is why it is known as middle lobe of pituitary also. और ये वाली यहाँ पे जो present है हमारी, that is the posterior lobe of pituitary, right? Now what happening is, there is our hypothalamus, right? So hypothalamus, because it is the part of our nervous system, so there are the axons, right? This is the signal which is we are getting from the nervous system. So these cells, we have made these cells, these are the neurosecretory cells, and you know that who secrete these cells, that is the hypothalamus. This is a hypothalamus cells, right? Neurosecretory cells, because neurohormones, they are released by them. Neurosecretory cells, they release their neurohormones into the blood. Now this releasing factor, it will stimulate, ये कहाँ जा रहा है arrow? In the anterior lobe of pituitary. So this neurohormone, ये जो डॉट दिख रही है आपको ग्रीन कलर की, ये क्या है? न्यूरो हार्मोन. इट कैन बी रिलीजिंग फैक्टर और इट कैन बी इनहिबिटरी फैक्टर. दीज आर सिक्रेटेड बाय न्यूरोसिक्रेटरी सेल्स थ्रू द हाइपोफाइजियल पोर्टल वेन. ये जो वेन दिख रही है आपको यहाँ पे, दिस इज वेन इज नोन एज हाइपोफाइजियल पोर्टल वेन. इट इज कैरिंग दीज रिलीजिंग फैक्टर्स. ये रिलीजिंग फैक्टर, इट विल स्टिमुलेट द एंटीरियर लोब ऑफ पिट्यूटरी, एंड फ्रॉम दिस anterior lobe of pituitary, now this anterior lobe of pituitary will get stimulated and trophic hormone will be released by the anterior lobe of pituitary. It can be prolactin, it can be your TSH, it can be your ACTH, right? It can be your FSH. These are the anterior lobe of pituitary hormones, which we calling them as a trophic hormones. Once more time, what is happening? हाइपोथैलेमस क्या करता है? हाइपोथैलेमस के जो न्यूरोसिक्रेटरी सेल्स हैं, दे प्रोड्यूस न्यूरो हार्मोन्स. दीज न्यूरो हार्मोन्स, दे आर रिलीज बाय ऑब्वियसली हाइपोथैलेमस. दे कम इनटू द ब्लड, right? This blood vessel, they form the capillaries, and capillaries again join to form a vein which is known as hypophyseal portal vein. And now this hormone can be releasing factor also, it can be inhibitory factor also. Now this will go into the anterior lobe of pituitary, it will stimulate it. Now anterior lobe of pituitary start releasing the trophic hormones, right? Now this was about the anterior lobe of pituitary, but what is happening in the our posterior lobe of pituitary? This is, as you can see, this is the axonal part of This is the axonal part of our neuron, and these are the neurosecretory cells. Now, these neurosecretory cells, they produce two main hormones. Which one? Oxytocin and ADH, and they keep storing in the stored in the axon. Now, the moment their blood vessels, when they enter into the posterior lobe of pituitary, now these these oxytocin and ADH, they will be depending on the which one is required, oxytocin or ADH, this directly they go into this our that blood vessel, and then that will be released by the or getting secreted by the posterior lobe of pituitary. So basically what I mean to say कि neurosecretory cells, right, they synthesized ऑक्सीटोसिन एंड ADH. मैंने कल भी बताया था कि इनको प्रोड्यूस कौन करता है, हाइपोथैलेमस, बट ये स्टोर हो जाते हैं फिर एक्सॉन में. उसके बाद जैसे ही इनको रिक्वायरमेंट होती है बॉडी में, दे गेट द सिग्नल, दे गो टू द पोस्टीरियर लोब ऑफ पिट्यूटरी, एंड पोस्टीरियर लोब ऑफ पिट्यूटरी थ्रू द ब्लड इट रिलीज देम इनटू द body, right, at a particular place. So this is how this posterior lobe of pituitary and anterior lobe of pituitary works. Now, how to understand this? As I told you here that neurohormones, they release, like they can be releasing factor or they can be inhibitory also. Like we talk about NSH, right? There is a thyroid stimulating hormone releasing factor. Who is producing them? ये कौन सा, ये जो हार्मोन है यहाँ पे कौन से हार्मोन की मैं बात कर रही हूँ? TSH, RF, राइट, थायराइड स्टिमुलेटिंग हार्मोन रिलीजिंग फैक्टर. अब ये कौन लेके आया यहाँ पे? हाइपोथैलेमस. इट इज़ प्रोड्यूस्ड बाय हाइपोथैलेमस. इट कम्स टू पिट्यूटरी, definitely it comes to anterior lobe of pituitary. It stimulate the anterior lobe of pituitary, and anterior lobe of pituitary start releasing TSH, thyroid, that is thyroid stimulating hormone. और ये जाके किसको स्टिमुलेट करेगा? ये जाके हमारे थायराइड ग्लैंड को स्टिमुलेट कर देगा. तो ये जो हमने यहाँ पे हार्मोन लिखा है, इट कैन बी एनी वन. इट कैन बी LH, इट कैन बी TSH, इट कैन बी FSH, इट कैन बी ACTH, जो कि हाइपोफाइजियल पोर्टल वेन के थ्रू होके जाएंगे. They will go through hypophyseal portal vein, right? It can be releasing, it can be inhibitory also. So basically conclusion is that pituitary is only the executing the instructions, but actually instructions are coming from the master gland, that is the hypothalamus. I gave you the example of school, that in a school there is a particular management, right? Management is the boss of everyone, and your principal is the boss of every teacher, right? Principal is the boss of every teacher. So see, but who is giving the instruction to principal? That is the management. So here is the hypothalamus is the management, and pituitary is at the principal place, right? Pituitary only execute those instructions which are released by the management, that is your hypothalamus. Now next gland we have to talk about is pineal gland or pineal gland. It is located at the, as you know, the diagram, if you recall that diagram, here on the front side there was the pituitary, and on the dorsal side it was the pineal gland, right? And hormone secreted by this gland is melatonin. The function of melatonin, when we say that your 24 hours rhythm, your sleep, your wake up cycle, that is regulated by melatonin. Body temperature as well as the pigmentation of the skin, menstruational cycle in females, then metabolism of the body, that is also controlled, regulated by, influenced by the pineal gland. But mostly the question comes from this melatonin, that which is the main regulatory hormone, diurnal hormone, rhythm hormone, sleep wake up cycle hormone, that is the melatonin. The serotonin also is secreted by pineal gland and it helps in the vasoconstriction of blood vessel. Basically blood vessels को narrow, blood vessel क्या width जो है उसको कम कर देता है, उसको constrict कर देता है. अगर वो इतनी है, अगर कोई blood vessel आपकी इतनी है तो वो constrict होके it will just become like this, right? This is called the constriction of the blood vessel. So serotonin help in the constriction of blood vessels, and melatonin, it is the main hormone which deals with the 24-hour rhythm of the body. This is all about our today's lecture about the pituitary gland and the pineal gland. Next we will talk about the thyroid gland in the complete